Welcome to the Broker Growth Accelerator, where we discuss how real estate brokers can accelerate their growth by improving their agent recruiting and retention. I'm your host, Jim Turner, and today we'll discuss growth tactics with our special guest, who is a subject matter expert in the industry. Let's get started. Hi, my name is Jim Turner, and I'm the CEO and founder of Brokerkit, and I'll be your host today. Today on the show, we're excited to have Omni Casey, a real estate managing broker, investor, and coach in Virginia, who's joined us to talk about his experience growing his business. Omni, welcome to the Broker Growth Accelerator podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jim. This is awesome. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So I'll just dive in with a few questions for you. So let's just start out with your market. So where do you live and how's the market there now?
Yeah, I'm in Northern Virginia, just outside of DC. It's a unique market, a lot of government contracting, a lot of various from the brand broker standpoint. Almost every brand is represented in this market. We are here at the end of 2022, heading into the holidays. So there is a slowdown, and there's obviously what's going on with the economy that's causing some pause, but there's pockets that are still pretty vibrant, if you're within the right price point.
Sure. Understood. And so how long have you been in the business, and how did you get into kind of where you are now in terms of being a managing broker in a large brokerage?
Sure. Yeah, I'm been in for about 20 years. I'm originally from Hawaii. I started my real estate career out there about 20 years ago. I was about 21 when I started. I actually started as an investor first. So I'm a real estate investor at heart. And then I just found it frustrating. I couldn't get the right broker support, agent, whatever it was as an investor. So I became an agent, thinking it was very easy. And obviously I became an agent, realized it wasn't that easy. And I love the business of being an agent. And the next progression was obviously the business of being a broker. It really appealed to me. So I took that path. I've been a managing broker a little over 10 years now. And just love the coaching aspect, the team building, and helping people kind of build their own businesses and hopefully achieve their financial goals.
Okay, great. So we really try to focus on the talent funnel on this podcast, right? And every business, including a brokerage, has two primary funnels, the sales funnel, the talent funnel. We believe that most brokerages are focused on the sales funnel, whereas the talent funnel is as important, if not more important, to really effectively grow your business. How many agents do you have, and where do you want to be 12 months from now?
Yeah, we have about 100 agents at our location. We always kind of hover between 90 and 100 or so. And that's been for the last couple years. We ramped up several years ago significantly from 60 and got to the level we are. I'm at a point where I need to hire more, management support staff before we ramp up to that next level. And that's probably where we're going to be. So it is making the decision. Are we growing our support team because we are a training heavy brokerage? So we want to be able to provide the custom one-on-one support and the tools and the resources. I guess internally are capping the amount of agents that we're bringing on. And we've also shifted over the last few years. The vast majority of the agents that we attract and we recruit are real estate investor agents as well. We are heavily focused on helping real estate investors. I'm a real estate investor. I say I'm an investor first and then a broker second. And so almost every single one of my agents that we've brought in over the last couple of years have been investors or want to be investors. And so it's kind of a unique approach in how we kind of find those agents, and we do that primarily through some of our education events.
Okay. And so you mentioned kind of bottlenecking because of the support staff at that 100 level. What's the size of your support staff now? And if you wanted to double it to like 200, what would you be looking to, or what do you think you need to add basically to keep that scaling going up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm one of my favorite books is Rocket Fuel. It's by Gino Wickman, and it's talking about the two people, just kind of your CEO and your COO kind of mindset. I definitely have a CEO mindset, but I definitely need that COO, right. And it's someone that I did bring onto the team this last year, and it's getting him up and running so that he can take on more of that responsibility. The size of my team, we have several regional administrative staff, an in-house administrative staff. I have a commercial broker. Within our brokerage, we cover both the residential, commercial, and the investing arm. And so we put those leaders in place, the commercial broker, the residential broker, and I primarily do the recruiting and primarily do the real estate investing coaching and training as well. We need about 2 more people to add so that we can scale up to that. Probably 150 agent range would be our next milestone to achieve.
Sure. And interesting that you mentioned Rocket Fuel. Familiar with that? It's one of the EOS books along with Traction. It's come up a number of times. We're very familiar with it. Chapter 1's about being the visionary. I read that and I was like, that's me.
Yes, absolutely.
And, luckily I did find my integrator and it's made my life much easier. So if you haven't read that book, we recommend you check it out. So you talked about a little bit about the profile of ideal agents, focusing on kind of investors. What are other things you look for agents to predict their success in your organization? So are you looking for levels, certain experience, levels of production, personality traits? Are you using something like the DISC assessment? What are you looking for in that interview process that's going to predict that they're going to be a good fit?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say about 60 to 70% of the agents that join us are experienced from other companies. And so their past experience is a really good indicator. And obviously that paired with their ability to be a real estate investor or understand real estate investing makes them a really good fit. But their drive is the most important thing. We can give them the tools, we can give them the resources. I lost track of how many times I've said it, but I can't want it more than you. And I sit down, sometimes I'm sitting down with a kind of someone that I'm mentoring and I really want it for them. And if they're not as driven or motivated, and maybe they're just not as serious, at least in that moment, it is tough. So those are good fits for maybe being a key member on the team. But we really look for like team leaders, people that want to be that CEO, so that we can put those integrators around them so that they can kind of grow their own business as well. So I look for the drive more than anything. Whether they're a year in the business or 10 years in the business, a level of success paired with their drive and understanding is helpful. And then we actually do coach and train from the ground up. So we have several new agent boot camps. So we do licensing classes and we look for talent. And once again, there's no way to predict someone's going to be successful, in terms of how much work they're actually willing to do, but their motivation and their drive as a brand new agent gives us the best indicator that they have a shot. Clearly, they gotta learn, kind of go through our boot camp. They gotta learn the process, and they actually have to implement it. And then, hopefully, they reap the reward, shortly after that.
Sure. And so you mentioned drive and a big focus on trying to assess that in the interview process. So how do you structure the interview process to kind of assess that trait? I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, everybody wants it, hard to pin down, and sometimes you only know in retrospect. But
Sure.
The self-motivated, the driven person who's going to go out and be goal-oriented. What do you look for as a tell for that?
Yeah, I usually jump right into a business planning coaching session. Like right in my initial meeting, I actually spend somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes going through my business plan that I created, and it helps them kind of put some numbers in place. If they're a brand new agent, it's the first time that they're seeing this. If they're an agent that maybe have been in the business for a few years, they've had some sort of version of it. But I take a unique approach that helps kind of bring some clarity and try to put that in front of them and make them make decisions about their growth. And if they're doing, 100 GCI, trying to figure out, do they want to, 10% increase, or do they want a 2x, 3x, 4x that, right? So what is their goal? And really the business plan that we set there kind of puts them into a certain boot camp or training funnel based on their aspirations. So we have a lot of training products, but we are really big on not overtraining and not training everything to every single agent. We want to give a certain level of training to this agent, and not really a brand new agent should not be learning all the high level stuff. They should be learning the basic stuff to get off the ground, versus your top agents should not be in the weeds, still, coming to trainings about the brand new stuff. So we tailor the coaching, we tailor the training platforms based on their actual business plan that I sit down with them usually at the first meeting.
Understood. So the talent funnel is very much like the sales funnel. What comes out the end has a lot to do with what comes in the top in terms of top of the funnel. So what are your sources of recruiting leads and how do you generate those?
Yeah. So I think we probably do everything that everyone else does, right? We have a call staff that calls PSI pass lists, which are local licensing for newer agents. We call on agents that might be having a down year that just might be looking for a shift and might be looking for a change as well. But by far, my number one recruiting is getting them to attend one of our education events, and we hold public education events. Not about joining our brokerage, not about real estate sales, but it is investor focused and kind of positioning myself and positioning agents in my team to become thought leaders in that field of the agent investor side. And so we typically once a month have an education event. We have about 100 people that show up, and that's a mix of some of my agents, that's a mix of the public. And then we probably get somewhere in the realm of 15 to 20 agents from other companies join us each time to learn about investing. And if they see that that's their passion and that's the route that they want to go, we've done a good job, I think, of positioning ourselves as really the only brokerage, at least in our area, that focuses heavily on that. And so it makes that follow-up meeting appointment at least much easier for them to agree to, because if they want to further that path on them becoming an investor and helping investors, that's really what we focus on.
Sure. Okay. Which that takes me kind of to my next question, right? So you generate interest, you set that recruiting appointment. How do you close them in that appointment? Once you've got kind of somebody interested, they come in for that discussion. How do you go about closing them?
Yeah, I think from the beginning I've approached, and I think many brokers might do this, but I approach it as it is semi-interview, but we are there to figure out if they're the right fit as well, right? Because we all know that culture is extremely important when you're trying to grow an office and grow a team. And so we let them know right up front, hey, right, we might decide mutually that we're not the right fit. By the end of the day, I'm going to make a decision if I feel you're the right fit for our office. And I tell them that in the very beginning. And by the end of the day, by the end of our session, you should be able to understand whether I'm the right fit to coach you and whether we're the right team to bring you on. Hopefully by that point, they've attended one or two of our events. And so they have an idea of what our culture is, and they might feel like they could be a good fit to that. And so by setting that expectation of we're going to talk about this at the end, I usually at the end, if they're the right fit, then I say, you know what, I would love to bring you onto the team. I would love to, start today, because it's beyond just growing your real estate business. We are going to help you, build your rental portfolio, build your investment portfolio. And so we take a two-pronged approach in terms of what their interests are and how we can help them do that. And I usually ask them to, by the end of the session, figure out, is this a place that you would like to transition to? We understand that you might not be able to transition into today because maybe they've got a bunch of things under contract, and depending on where they are, it may not be something that they can switch over right away, but make a soft commitment of, yes, I think I want to start putting a plan in place to transition. And sometimes that's we're transitioning tomorrow, and sometimes that's we're transitioning over the next 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Okay, so when you land them, now you got to retain them. Retaining them is all about coaching them to success and keeping them engaged. So let's start with the coaching side. So what production goals do you set for them? And does it depend on experience versus new? And how are you coaching them and your organization coaching them to hit those goals?
Yeah, great question. So I don't set production goals for them anymore. I used to, and I realized that my goals were never their goals. And so we do take a one-on-one, business planning coaching session approach when they come on board. So the coaching session that I started in the interview, we actually come back to that we already have a blueprint. We're 50% there. We finish that off. And at the end of that, there's an actual dollar amount that they want to target. So we come up with two numbers, their walkaway number. Everyone should have a number that if they do anything less than this, you're going to look yourself in the mirror and say, this is not for you. Right. And most people are saying, well, I would never leave real estate. I'm not going to walk away. I forced them to come up with a walkaway number, purely just to make sure that they stay way far away from that number, as because they're committing to like theoretically walking away if they ever do less than X amount of transactions or X amount of GCI. And then we figure out what is their stretch goal on top of that, right? They've been doing X 100, 150, 200,000. What are we stretching them to? And then we reverse engineer based on what activities they're doing. If it's a lot of referral, if it's a lot of sphere based, if it's activity, open house, event based, if it's, farming, is it, social media, online ad related, we take what's working for them and we try to coach them up to hopefully do it more efficiently. And then can we add one more thing that they're willing to try? Because if they want to, increase their business by 30%, you can work 30% harder, or you can try what you're doing right now and add something else. And that something else might be what closes the gap there. And so we have a very strategic approach of, doing certain activities that lead to a certain result. We track a lot of numbers here. We have for a very long time. So we have a really good understanding of how many activities it takes an average agent to get to a closing, right? How many postcards versus how many open houses versus how many face-to-face coffee meetings does it take an average agent in our office to get to a closing? And then we can work our way backwards. And if they're not meeting that average, then we know that they have a closing or conversion issue. And then that might be dialogue, that might be some other coaching mechanism that we can look at. But if they're not getting the amount of appointments that they need to even try to convert, then that's obviously a prospecting, right? And we put them down a certain funnel to make sure they're using the resources or they're learning the resources that they have available to further their prospecting or further down their coaching path.
Sure. And so a common thing we also hear is the coaching helps drive retention, but also just keeping them engaged, whether it be the training activities, social events, just coming to the office. So what are your thoughts on that? And what do you do to drive engagement within your organization with those agents?
Yeah, that's probably one of the harder things. Sometimes you feel like a cheerleader, just getting the energy up and getting them to come in. And during COVID, obviously that became very difficult. Right. And so I did my best, after the mandatory shutdown, when we can come back in our area where we're considered essential workers. So I actually reopened the office. We're one of the few offices open because I wanted those who could come in and wanted to come in to be able to come in safely and discuss and actually feel part of a community still. Obviously a vast majority of agents work remotely, and many of them are still trying to slowly get back into the in-person versus the hybrid or the remote style. So we're bribing them with food. We're bribing them with parties. We're bribing them with contests. We're bribing them with like really good guest presenters. We turned off the Zoom funnel. So like for the ones that just were used to just, I'm going to stay at home forever and just participate via Zoom, for certain sessions, we turn it off. So they have to come in if they really want it, or there's kind of make them feel like they're missing out. Because the reality is you can work remotely and virtually, but there's no tie, right? And they're not benefiting from the culture we've created in the office. They're not benefiting from the network and their peers, which is a big part of at least our brokerage. And so we want them to come in whenever possible. We want them to be a part of that culture, contribute to the culture. Yesterday we had a pre-Thanksgiving lunch. And so we had a full roasted turkey. We had like more food than I'll probably eat at Thanksgiving. And we got a big crowd for that. And then we book in that with trainings and content creation, work sessions and things like that. So not everything's for everyone, but we try to every day have multiple things each day that they're going to be tempted to say, you know what, if I have time in between appointments, I'm going to pop in and at least try to attend one of these things. And it tends to work.
Sure. And so when do you know that you have a great hire? Is it 3 months, 6 months, a specific timeline? And what do you need to see to know that they were a great hire?
Yeah. You have a gut feeling when you hire somebody, but I've been so wrong on my gut feeling so many times. Like, this guy's going to be a rock star, and he fizzles out, right? Or someone that you're like, we'll take a chance on this person, and they end up being the rock star. So gut feeling when you're hiring somebody, and how they interview is just like so unpredictable. It probably is somewhere in the 1 to 3 month range, you may not be seeing results or a whole lot of results at that point unless they're bringing a pipeline with them. But you're seeing their motivation, you're seeing their willingness to come in and take the training, be a part of the group sessions, self-motivated on some of the actual activities to go out and build their business. If they're not doing that, then you just know that, we laid out a plan. You said you're going to follow a plan and you're not following the plan, right? And so somewhere in that 1 to 3 month range, we know whether or not they're on track. And then we try to have an intervention and we say, all right, remember the plan you came up with? You're probably not on track for that plan. What do we want to lower your goal? Do we want to reduce expectations, or do you want to increase activities so that you can try to meet your expectations? Once again, they're not my expectations. They're your expectations. My job is to help you achieve your goals. You got to reduce your goals if you're not going to increase your activities. And we force them to actually think about changing their business plan or saying, you're right, I've been a bum. I need to actually go out and work.
Sure. And so, if you were kind of like your former self, right? You've been in the business 20 years, right? For somebody who's maybe a little earlier in their career and they want to be where you are, right? But they don't want to take 20 years. Looking back, what are a couple of top tips for someone to get to where you are now, but like in an accelerated time frame? What are the top lessons learned you've had over the course of time?
I wish I understood the power of I call it the trifecta. It's mentors, coaches, and masterminds, and all three of those. I've had mentors at some point, and at some point I hired coaches, and then masterminds I fell into a few of them. But mentors are different than coaches. Mentors are typically peers, typically someone just ahead of you. Coaches are strategic. They can separate themselves. They may not even be in your industry. Often they are, but they offer like some high level advice, really strategy wise, to help you get to that next level or overcome whatever obstacle that you're in. And masterminds are often peers and combination of peers and mentors on a regular basis, just kind of like putting our minds together, thinking about the market, thinking about, and at the end of it, no matter how experienced you are or how smart you are, there's things that you would never be able to come up with or think of that comes out of those mastermind sessions. And so becoming a part of, whether it's within your brokerage or within your association or within just agents that you kind of connect with, force these mastermind topic discussions, making sure that you have a mentor, making sure that you have a coach is probably the fastest way to fast track your to find out what your ceiling is. You'll never find out what your ceiling if you don't have that, those three things, throughout your early career at least. Awesome.
Great answer. And I definitely agree with that, having accelerated, my journey in the last few years via all of the above. So that covers all the questions we had for you today. Where would our listeners find you online?
Sure. I have a website. It's called omnitheinvestorguy.com. I am also on Facebook, Instagram, same handle, Omni the Investor Guy. You can find out about, some of my training. I try to post, some of the investor related topics. Whether you're an agent or an investor out there, we try to provide to the community as much free content as possible. It's usually on all three of those.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today, Omni. And thanks to our listeners out there for tuning in. And we hope you tune in again for our next episode. Thanks so much and have a great week. If you enjoyed our show, please add a rating for us on Apple or Spotify podcasts. And be sure to come back next time to hear more strategies that will help you grow your business. Until then, this is Jim Turner. And don't forget, you need to start putting some of these tips to work today.
Thanks for listening to the Broker Growth Accelerator podcast by Brokerkit. This episode was produced by Jared White from InPhase Media and created and hosted by Jim Turner from Brokerkit.